Best of r/entitled parents episode 98. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. I wrote about this mother a while back. Anti-vaxxer, entitled child, learning disability, everything. I'm a teacher in Germany. In this class wrote a test in German, as a subject and in the language, obviously. There was a part about grammar. The students had to write a text in simple present instead of past. I handed out a test, everyone read the sheet. Questions about the test were answered, so I said that there were no more questions allowed from that point on, unless the student came up to the teacher's desk. This normal M.O. here and I guess in most other countries. So the work phase started when this entitled kid shouted loudly into the class, "We have to use present tense, right?" To be fair, she has a problem with revolting emotional outbreaks, so this wasn't out of the ordinary, but she is now in 7th grade and has to understand that this behavior has consequences. So I went over to her and told her quietly that I wouldn't allow for her grammatical part. I hope I use that term correct. I made a note not to judge that part and subsequently did not, when I corrected the tests. I did note under her test that she blurted the answer into the class and therefore I couldn't judge that part. Not giving points wasn't the problem anyway, because although she knew that she had to write in present tense, she used the past tense. I guess everyone who read the title knew what had to come. Entitled mother wrote me an email, explaining how unfair it is that her daughter had to lose 6 points, when every other student profited because of her daughter. I wrote back, 1. How glad she should be that her daughter only lost 5 points instead of me failing her for cheating and helping others. 2. That there is a difference between knowing the right answer and using it in the text, which her daughter couldn't, so she wouldn't have gotten no points, even if she would not have screamed into class. 3. That it is my right as a teacher to sanction cheating as long as I catch the student in the act, within limits, but I did not write that. I also quoted the, so she could confirm that I was right, because I know how anti-vaxxers love to fact check. Last I gave her the principal's mail address, so she could file a complaint. I never got another email since then and the principal did neither. TLDR. Enraged mother wants me to lower all students' grade, because her child couldn't keep quiet during a test. Thank you. Next. This happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter was DX'd with bacterial pneumonia and we ended up in the emergency room because she was struggling to breathe. Pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and O2, and given an IV for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the PICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small, and you share them. There is a curtain that divides them. There are no doors, just another curtain. Around 4 p.m. a family arrives with mom, dad, 5-year-old daughter. The mom briefly looks in on my side of the room and could see my toddler laying in the bed hooked to machines with an IV. It's obvious that this isn't a stubbed toe, so I can't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid's in the ED. Stomach pain. Meanwhile the kid is asking for something to eat. She sounds quite perky. Parents insist she has a kidney infection. Whatever. I don't know her history. Not interested. So my daughter was given a steroid through her nebulizer to help open her airways. Her O2, which they wanted 90 or above, kept dipping down into the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise, and the side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired as hell. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled parents call for a nurse and ask for a private room because their daughter needs to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile their daughter was blasting Ryan's toy review from her tablet, and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explained that there is no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then starts having a coughing fit, which is scary as her O2 drops off and she chokes until she vomits. I had 2 nurses and trying to help by suctioning her and patting her back. I'm trying to help her. My daughter is turning blue. I hear the entitled mother ask the nurse how long are they going to be expected to listen to that. Afterwards my daughter was wiped out and was crying a little, and the entitled mom rang for her nurse again and asked again for someplace quiet so her little girl can rest. Her daughter was making a lot of noise playing with something. Then they started playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side, and then a master switch to cut all the lights. My daughter is afraid of the dark. The entitled dad cuts the lights for the room, making it quite dark with the curtain over the doorway drawn. I tell my husband to turn on the lights on our side, which he does. The entitled mom calls her nurse to complain that it's too bright for her little girl to sleep. It's 5 p.m. The nurse explained that they are welcome to shut the lights off on their side, but they have to leave our side alone. They complain a bit about how ill their daughter is. Meanwhile, my daughter is drowning in her own lungs, which I'm sure they know as you can hear everything. Then nurse leaves and they shut the lights off for the entire room again. My husband immediately turns ours on and calls through the curtain that we need our lights on. Silence. Our nurse comes in to attend to my daughter's IV and they attempt to get her force us to have the lights off. Our nurse basically tells them to knock it off. Then they start pushing for more space. They attempt to push our chair away where my husband is sitting. They put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtain into our faces essentially. My husband pushes it back. They call and complain. Rinse and repeat. Finally a room in the PICU opens up and we are told that we would be admitted in an hour. Entitled parents complain that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explains that we are being admitted, not being given a private room in the ED. The EP demand they be admitted first because their daughter is so much sicker. The nurse says that there is no reason for their daughter to be admitted as she is just constipated and as soon as she poops they will be free to go. The parents start freaking out. So that's my story of how the parents of a little girl who needed to take a shit felt they were more important than a little girl with pneumonia. Edit. First of all, my daughter is doing much better. Thanks for all the well wishes. Second, many of you say you would have caused some sort of scene, or you would have acted aggressively or called them on their behavior. I worked in an emergency room for 4 years. Unruly parents were often removed from the emergency room without their child. I kept my head down and took it because the care my child was receiving to keep her heart beating was more important. Imagine that. My daughter was never in danger. Her nurses were attentive, helpful, friendly, responsive. I would have taken whiplashes from Satan himself if it meant my daughter getting care. The petty complaints and power play coming from the other side of the curtain didn't affect my child at all. The nurses had their number. They were handling it. Thank you. Next. TL. DR. Child enters a room she shouldn't enter and breaks something expensive. Parents thinks I rip her off when I tell the price. You know the drill. EM. Entitled mother, EC. Crotch goblin, entitled child, me, or humble narrator. Okay, let's start with the situation. My workshop is located in an office building no longer in use. As a result, they opened it up to various smaller companies to work there. I only recently opened the workshop at this location and am still very busy with moving, as well as getting to know what everyone does. There are mostly online shops and artists who have a room there. The hallways where I have my office is locked off with an access code. It started on a Sunday. I like working on Sundays because there is nobody in the building. So, music on, and start working. What I do in my workshop is working with leather, faux furs and faux leathers. So I have an array of knives, scissors, needles, punches, and pliers that would not be misplaced in a Lovecraftian horror scene. Only, I needed to go to the bathroom. So I closed the door but I did not lock it. In hindsight, I should have locked it and from now on I do that. But at the moment, there was no one. We all know each other, so what could have gone wrong? Famous last words. So I come back in the workshop with my door opened. Strange, I had closed the door, right? I discover much to my surprise that there was a child, perhaps 6, in the workshop nosing around. There are a few small issues with it. One comes to my mind when I see the nice shiny metal of one of my scissors. These scissors are my pride. They are high strength carbon steel alloy and I keep them razor sharp, perhaps even sharper. They are perfect for cutting through synthetic fabrics, different leathers, and to my own frustration, human skin if you don't pay attention. We are talking about a 28 centimeter, 11 freedom inches, long blade, hollow ground and polished. So I got a bit nervous when I saw a child with that tool. I also didn't want the child to get scared and drop the scissors. They do not act well when dropped. Now there were no parents with the child at that moment, so I approached the child to ask what it was doing here and more importantly, for my scissor back. Shiny objects and children. No luck in getting my quite expensive scissor back. So I got a bit sterner. I do not want to grab for the scissors as it's as dangerous for me as it is for the child. Do you know how difficult it is to clean blood from a floor? Now when I talk stern I do raise my voice a bit and it does carry. So finally the mother made an appearance. Apparently, learning after the fact, she was visiting a therapist with her child. Figures. At first, it was quite nice. I asked the mother for my scissor back and to remove her child from my workshop. The mother also did not have luck with getting the scissor back from the child, who now became frustrated that two people were asking her newfound toy back. Following conversation translated from Dutch. Sure, there is no harm in letting the EC play with it a bit longer. Me, Mom, I have work to do and that scissor is quite dangerous. There is a reason I have that on the wall, and I pointed to a large, well-equipped industry first aid kit. Then why she is here? Me. Beats me, but I do have to ask you to leave. This is no place for a child. My following error was to take a step to EC with my hand open and making a gesture for the scissor. The child gave a cry and threw the scissor on the ground. It dropped on its tip and did me a kind job of breaking apart. It is said that a Dutch guy can swear for 2 minutes long, uninterrupted, without repeating themselves. And at that moment I had to keep myself from not teaching the child a whole new vocabulary of words that would make the devil ask if you can keep it civilized. It's not the child's fault. It hardly ever is at that age. I took the scissors and the tip carefully from the ground. It was about a centimeter long and there was no way I could grind the blade back to repair the damage. So I looked at the mother. This is a problem. Yeah, sorry. Here, have a tenner. That should be enough. Me, not even close. These scissors cost me about 120 euros a piece. That is 120 euros wholesale price, not retail. I wanted replaced, not to make a profit on it. For a moment I saw her soul leave her body. Well, you shouldn't have left your door open. Technically she was right, but technically you should always watch your child. Me, the door was closed, just not locked. I do ask for some compensation for the breaking of my tool since you are responsible for your child. A child who was looking with tears in her eyes to the scissor I was holding. No, you will not get it. Demon spawn. I do not know why, but she calmly took some cash from her wallet, threw it at me with the words "take your bloody money," and left with roughly pulling on EC's arm, who started to cry at this point. The only consolidation is that what she threw at me was a bit more than the cost of new scissors, so technically I made a profit. Thank you. Next. So this happened this morning. It does not have a satisfying ending. Be prepared to feel rage. I was at my OB office this morning, and she's generally always busy. I had a 10 AM appointment and didn't get into a room until 11 AM. The waiting room is always packed. There is a table in the center with pregnancy books, magazines, a few toys, and a small shelf beside it filled with children's books. Enter EM and EK. EM was late in her pregnancy, that was obvious, and EK was probably around 4, maybe not quite. EM sits down and immediately stares off into the void. EK gets right into the toys on the table, then starts pulling books out of the kid's shelf, and stacking them on the floor. Every few minutes looking up at EM for her approval/disapproval. EM continues to exist only in her head. The more she ignores him, the more EK starts to cause trouble. It started with throwing the kids' books around the room, scattering them everywhere. Then he moves on to the magazines and pregnancy books, tossing them down and kicking them across the room. Another mom, M, and her baby, B, maybe 8 months, come in and sit down on the floor next to the table, where she is quietly playing with her baby. Immediately EK is interested in them. He starts by bringing them book after book. M is chatting with him, reading the books he brings her, pointing out the pictures and generally being kind. EK runs over to EM periodically to show her what he's doing. She gives him small nods, then gently pushes him back to the books and toys, now scattered all over the room. M and B are making a game of picking up the books around them and putting them back on the table and in the shelf. EK is getting frustrated, and starts running around the room, gaining momentum, screaming about this and that, and he jumps down next to M and B, and starts to tickle B's feet, of course. Being 4, you are more poking and scratching than effectively tickling, and being 8 months, you have no capacity to fake it for entertainment's sake. So EK is getting more and more aggressive with it. M repeatedly asks him to be gentle, and tries to guide him how to do it without hurting B. EK give up and just steals the socks off of B's feet. M reaches for the socks and says, "No, we need those," really gently. EK doesn't like that, leans back on his hands, and starts kicking M and B. Gets B square in his tiny tummy, and of course now B is howling. EM finally looks over, and from 3 seats away from her, I couldn't hear what she said. Sounded like Nash number, but it was so quiet. She gets up, gently tugs the back of his shirt, so he backs up. Then she goes and sits down again, and once again resumes her absolutely vacant expression at the blank wall. EK goes back to playing with the books, but he's not playing. He's ripping chunks of pages out of the pregnancy books, rips the cover off 2 books. He's got half pages and clumps of magazine pages laying around him now. B is now standing against the table doing a cute little baby bounce, smiling and giggling with him. EK turns around when he giggles, stands up and shoves a large stack of heavy magazines off the table and into B, knocking him flat on his bum, toppled with magazines. At this point I'm visibly stressing out over this. Like a train wreck, it kept getting worse and I couldn't look away. I desperately wanted to intervene, but as a mom, in a room full of moms, getting involved in someone's parenting job is a hot topic, and I get it. Late in your pregnancy you're worn out, at your wit's end, brain does not commute. But I'd be damned if I ever let my 3-year-old get to that point in public before removing her from the situation, and setting some serious ground rules. And I have 4 weeks left of my pregnancy, so I'm there too. I was flat out sweating. My heart was racing watching this, and for the life of me I'll forever be impressed by the patience of the mother with her baby. If you think it ends there, you're wrong. Enter another little boy, LB. He comes in and sits on the floor, picks a book and is quietly flipping pages, looking at the pictures and keeping to himself. I'd say LB is fresh 3. He's about my daughter's size, and noticeably smaller than EK. If you guessed LB gained EK's attention the second he sat down, you'd be right. He has his back to EK, so naturally, EK picks up a book and throws it at LB, hitting him square in the back of the head, and without skipping a beat, picks up 2 more books, and one after another dumps them in LB's lap, on top of the book he's looking at. LB cringes and ducks his head in, then picks the 2 books up and gently sets them next to him, ignoring EK, so EK gets closer, like their noses and inch apart close, and starts shouting in LB's face hey over and over again. LB shrinks inwards again, and scoots in a half circle so he's not facing EK anymore. EK then takes to shoving LB in the shoulder, still shouting hey at him. Here's the part of the story that I get called into my doctor's office for. Which is good, cause I was about to implode and scoop those little kiddos up and hug them and keep them safe from this little terror. I'm hot in the face. Every parent in the room by now is watching this kid and shaking their head. Mom still hasn't given him a second look. This story ends on an extra sour note. I came out of my appointment, and back around the corner towards the waiting room. Books still scattered everywhere. LB now cowering in his mother's shoulder while she hugs him, and EK sitting with his dad. WHO had been there the whole time, sitting around the corner also ignoring his child. I left fuming. I'm floored that parents like this exist. The mindset of if I don't see it, it's not happening put every other child in that room at risk. Cost the office a new pregnancy book at least, and I'd be willing to bet they didn't touch the disaster the child had made out of the books and toys. I was appalled. The end. Thank you. Next. Sorry if this is hard to read. I am on mobile. Sorry for anything blah blah blah, you know the drill. So, as a smart kid, my circle of friends was always pretty small, mostly because I was a huge nerd, which meant that I didn't really play any video games at the time. In order to combat this whole thing, and in the wish to expand my circle of friends, I raised up $1,000 to buy myself a gaming setup so I could finally play some games with my soon-to-be friends. However, all of this didn't go unnoticed under my mother's, very careful and invading eyes, and so, when I finally got my hands on my PC, she just casually approached me. Hey there, OP, what you got there? Me, my gaming setup. I have worked so hard to get this, now I can finally play with my friends. You what? Awkward silence. OP, What did I say about video games in my household? Me, Mom, I have graduated high school 3 weeks ago. It's finally summer break. Let me have my damn peace. Alright then. Well, enjoy your games. While they last. After that thriller of an ending, I decided to set up all my gaming stuff, and then proceeded to play Minecraft with a friend for an hour. Before I got hungry, I decided to go out and eat at a nearby Pizza Hut, unoutpizzable BTW. When I got home, well, nothing. Something happened, there's no doubt. It's just that I came home to nothing. Everything in my room was looted, including my PC. Oh boy. In pure anger, I knew that my mother has been playing dirty that day, and with no hesitation, I have promptly showed myself in front of Lucifer's wife herself. Me, I know what you did. Making the most shit-eating innocent face. What? What did I do? Me, don't play me on your fingers, lady, we have beef to get into. Well, it seems like God has punished you for your disobedience, hasn't he? Me, you fucking bitch, where did you put my stuff? Well, perhaps God decided to reward a little angel that has been on her top behavior lately, your sister, perhaps. For context, my sister is a lazy lump of lumber that is on a brink in school, but has lately been hanging around with my mother and eating her shit up with no break. Me. What the fuck is wrong with you, woman? Yay, whatever, get out of here, jerk. So, yay. I had to talk to my sister to get my stuff back. It was pretty easy. I just gave her my customized iPhone case that was nice and glossy. She loved it. That case was $300, and it was limited edition by a designer. Don't know who, TBH. Right now I live over at one of my friend's house, and I have blocked EM's number. It's kinda shit now, but hey, I will get my dad involved once he comes back from his work trip. Thank you guys for reading, and let no one step over you. Thank you. Next. I've now met one in the wild and it was a bizarre experience. Quick bit of context. I support vulnerable people, in this case an elderly person with memory issues, in medical appointments and take notes on my phone so I can accurately report what took place and email them quickly to whoever needs them. Sometimes the medical professional thinks I'm texting on my phone and ignoring what's happening, in which case I explain/show my notes if appropriate and then the appointment continues. Sometimes I get complimented, sometimes they look put out, whatever. Scene setting. This takes place in a clinic which is in a very long room where there is a line of patient areas separated by curtains. Basically the patient is called from the waiting area, walks along the line of curtained off sections to the one they're called to. Then they are helped set up by generic nursing staff who then leave them in the curtained off bit until the specialist staff get in there and do their thing. The night previously I had been sending nude selfies to my so and I had not yet deleted them from my phone. Cast, mother attending with 3 kids, TG, teenage girl, the patient attending the clinic with her awful mum and 2 siblings, TT tiny toddler, the youngest of EM's children, EK, entitled kid, the presumed middle child of EM, C, the person I'm supporting N1, the nurse who's setting people up in the base N2, the nurse treating CN3, the nurse treating TG me, the support worker, N1, calls C into the clinic and he and I help C down to the bay next to TG, calls N1 into their bay to help TG with something and I help C set up, N1, comes back and finishes helping C set up. I get out my smartphone and make generic notes, time, date etc. TT crawls under the curtains dividing C and TG's bays. C is delighted and asks TT's name. TT goes red and crawls back under. A few moments later TT crawls back. C, hello, where did you come from? TT, points. C, are you here to get treatment? TT, shakes head. C, I'm here to get treatment. Me, to TT, should you be with your mum? TT, shrugs. C, I used to run off all the time when I was a kid. Me, to TT, do you know where your parents are? TT, points back to the curtains he just crawled through. Me, to TT, should you be back there? C, AWW, he just came to say hello. Me, and now we've said hello, should we say bye bye? TT, beams and waves, bye bye. C, beams and waves, Bye bye. Me. Bye bye. TT crawls back under curtains. N3 shows up in the next bay and starts treating TG. I can hear but I'm not listening, so I assume this is roughly what happens. N2 shows up and starts asking C preparatory questions. I start making notes on my phone and occasionally interjecting if C can't remember certain answers. EK crawls under the curtains. N2, kid, you need to get back to your bay. EK crawls back. N2 begins to treat C and asks C something that requires me to check the notes on my phone. EK crawls back and is not immediately noticed by N2 or me. C, oh look, another runaway. N2, kid, you need to go back to where you're supposed to be. EK, my mum says I can. N2, but I work here and say you can't. This bay is for this guy getting treatment. EK, louder, my mum said I could come. Me, yes, but she meant with her not in this bay. This is private for him. Nods at C. EK, you let TT in here. Me, making the assumption EK is referring to the child in here earlier. We asked TT to leave too and now C is getting treatment. You need to go back to your mum. EK, wails, moo. Then EK pulls at the curtains between the bays, pulling some of the curtain hooks out but mostly succeeding in pulling them back so that TG and C are no longer private from each other. TG is in the middle of treatment and is not totally clothed. She is not happy about this and starts screaming at EK to close the curtains. There was nothing visible that you wouldn't get at a conservative beach, but I'm totally with her on being upset about this. EM starts screaming at N3 to close the curtains. TT waves at C, who smiles and waves back to TT. EM, stop that pervert waving at my daughter. Why is he looking at my daughter? Me, gets up to close curtains. EM, she's taking pictures. They're pedophiles. N3, closes curtains. TG continues shouting at EK. EM continues shouting at N1 about C and me. TT starts crying. N2 apologizes and starts treatment. EM continues to harangue N3 about our vile behavior. N1 comes into the bay. N1, excuse me, but have you been taking photographs? Me, no, I'm taking notes on my phone so C knows what's happened. I show him the phone. N1, okay, thanks. N1 leaves and I hear him go into TG's bay. This time I do listen and hear him explain what happened. EM, I saw her taking photographs. N1, she wasn't. EM, well, why did she have her phone out? N1, she was taking notes about treatment. EM, that's bollocks. Nobody needs to do that. N1, well, perhaps the old guy's memory isn't very good. EM, they're a couple of pedos. Why haven't you called the police? N3, EK opened the curtains. EM, starts swearing at N3 for accusing her EK of being a pedo. N2 and I are now looking at each other wide-eyed, both clearly listening into the next bay. C seems to be blissfully unaware of what's happening in the next cubicle. N2 starts determinedly working away with a vengeance. EM, I want you to get a effing supervisor here. I want the mother effing doctor in here. N3, saying something placatory I didn't catch. TG, mum, please just let's finish and get out of here. EM, we are not getting out of here until they do something about them. N2, is zipping through the treatment with no little speed. N1, comes into bay. Sorry, could I look at the pics on your phone at all? Me, not unless you buy me dinner first. N1, UHH, it's just the lady in the next bay wants to check your phone. Me, look, I'll show N3 but it's all Cass, kids and my tits, and I'm not showing some random others. N1 leaves and goes into the next bay. N2 finishes treatment in record time and N2 and I start getting C ready to leave. There is still some hassle going on in the next bay, but TT is wailing now, or possibly EK, and I can't really hear it. N3 comes into the bay. Look, I'm really sorry, but could I check your phone? Me, yes, the last few pics are me topless. Oh. N3, me, that's why I didn't want to show the guy. N1, the pics. I don't mind so much because you're a woman, but I'm not showing her. Nods towards EM. N3, me, look, if it'll help shut her up you can see the pics, but whatever you're okay with. N3, no, I'm not doing this. Goes back into bay. C is now ready to go and N2 is desperately trying to get us out of there. But as we're leaving, EM steps out of the bay in front of me, between me and C. EM, call the effing police on them. N3 is trying to get her back into her bay. EM, I want those effing pictures on your effing phone. Me, I need you to move. I'm here to support that gentleman and I need you to move now. EM, effing carers can't afford phones like that. Bet you're a effing prosy. Me, I need you to move. C, completely oblivious, is now the other end of the room on his own. EM, effing pedo prosy. TG, mum. EM, I'm sorting this out. TG. Me, attempts to slide past whilst she's distracted. EM, call the effing police, she's getting away. Me, yes, call the police. My name is Lovelimish. You can get hold of me at local hospice. Now I need to help him. Held past EM to where C is actually doing fine and utterly unaware of the situation. EM is fishmouthing, presumably because she now thinks C is dying. I am working at the hospice, just not with C. N1, come and sit down. To EM, we've called the police. From the look I got from N2, I think the reason the police were called was nothing to do with me. Certainly I haven't heard anything. Thank you. Next. Not me but my scout leader. He used to run a DOV course for the scouts. For Americans this is a long hike carrying your stuff with no contact to anyone, pitching a tent and sleeping and then hiking the next day to a pickup point with your 4-6 man group. He always gave a very heavy warning that the scouts have to bring a cold pack lunch which doesn't need cooking and nothing which will spoil like a steak or something. One entitled parent insisted on bringing those ready meal army food packs which you add water to and then boil for his lunch, but they didn't have HW time to heat it up, so he went without lunch on both days. Another time, an idiot packed milk and bacon which leaked in his bag and went off as it wasn't refrigerated, so all of his clothes and stuff were covered in spoiled milk and raw bacon.